from today's, conversation, helping out in that area. Thank you very much, Louise. Now
You're
I'm going to
welcome.
go back to you, Susana Ciara. I like your name because your last name, Ciara, is the first name of my country. I am in Sierra Leone, a Sierra Leonean, and your last name is Ciara. So I have a soft spot for you already, Susana. So I was going to ask you, so what would you say is the, best strategy to encourage compliance by business leaders for sustainable development? Of course, compliance of policies, regulatory bodies, etc., and so much.
Okay, thanks. I don't hear you. Something happened? Do you hear me?
Especially as we are at this time. Yes, I can get you now.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry about before, but I thought that was just questions. No, but I want to talk about corruption. I know it's not a nice topic, but I think that is very important for sustainability in the next decade. And sadly, after COVID, we are facing a lot of corruption talent. And I want to tell you about some study of Transparency International that we were doing about how it's going to be the world after COVID. And I think that is interesting because to fight corruption, we need to understand that corruption is a topic and that we are going to be like a world more fertile for corruption. So what is going to happen is that now we have a lot of inequality in the world. The projections before COVID is just 1% of the world is going to have more than 2/3 of the wealthy of the world in 2030. And I think that after COVID that is going to be accelerated. And why is that a problem for corruption? Is because when you have inequality in countries, there is a lot of populist leaders that go to the power saying that they are going to fight about corruption, but then happens exactly the contrary or just the opposite to that. Now we are going to facing an economic crisis too in all the countries and all at the same time. And what happened with economic crisis is that two companies do everything to survive. So it's a risk of a corruption too, because nobody is thinking in the way they are doing business. They are just thinking in win or not to die or earn money. So it's really complex about what is going to happen about money laundering and about corruption in different countries, because everybody just want to survive. And what is happening with the informal economy, it's really dangerous too for corruption. On the other hand, we have a lot of countries that are living in without liberty, and we have after COVID a lot more of leaders that they have all the power and they are working with authoritarian policies, so people don't have the chance to manifest for liberty or to demand accountability for the governments, and all the check and balance are being debilitated. So that is a big risk for corruption too. And if you assume that about the fake news and the lacking of trust that we have now in authorities is really complex. So what I want to let you, and especially about sustainability in the next decade, especially after COVID, is we need that base, that we need to understand that corruption exists, that we are going to face a world that is going to be like more corrupt than ever. So I think that the private sector and companies have an important work to fight against that. But when a lot of time when we talk about sustainability and we talk about ESG and like the world we want, we just talk about that, and I think that is amazing, but we sometimes we don't talk about the way that we are doing things. And I think that fight corruption and work against all that is happening in the world and fight against corruption it's very important. Sometimes it's the base, so we forget about that, and we are thinking just in the way we are doing the work better, but we forgot like that standard. And now we have to be more alert, and really know that private sector have a role in preventing corruption. And if I'm sure that maybe more than 50% of the companies are good companies, but sometimes they do things because they auto justify some actions, or they are worrying just about results. And after COVID, that is going to be more than ever. So I encourage you to do the things the good way, and if you see something, to denounce that and expose that and talk about corruption, because it's a thing that exists in all the world, and we don't want to talk about that. And if we don't talk about that, we don't know that, we just think that is doesn't exist, but it really exists. And if is really dangerous for what is going to happen in the future.
Wow, thank you very much, Susana. And this takes us to, the results of desperation. Even before COVID, there are people who got so desperate because, again, corruption comes about as a result of desperation and greed. When people get really desperate and greedy, they engage themselves in corruption. So, there are businesses that are badly hit by COVID. So some people are still trying to find ways to survive and keep their business afloat. Post-COVID, it's going to be the same. It's going to take a while for some businesses, to bounce back and get back on track. But as a leader, you need to be mindful of what you're doing. You don't want all that, thoughts about, oh, I'm failing. Oh, I failed. Oh, the business is crashing. Oh, I need to keep it going. I need to survive at all costs. You want to embark on corruption. And as you said that, it reminds me of, I think it was last week or 2 weeks back, somebody was talking about an individual that was asking that individual for advice, and the person was saying that the person's company was offered a contract through from a government institution, and so the contract should be 250 million leones. But the person who works for the government institution proposed to that individual from the private company to say, I would sign your name and bypass the system, so we give you the contract, but on the condition that you take 50 million leones and I, the individual at the government institution, will take 250 million leones. And the person was about to agree to that deal. And I asked the person, what advice did you give the individual? Because it's not making sense. 250 million leones. Obviously, you're not stealing it. You would have to spend some money to execute it. So if that individual is taking 200 million and you get 50 million, are you sure you're going to be able to execute the contract? That's one. Secondly, it's corruption. If there's that opportunity, you're supposed to have the platform where you bid for it like any other person and bank on your abilities and what you're penning down in your bidding process. But the person proposing to you, take 50 and give me 200 out of desperation because the business was failing, that individual was almost going for it. It's corruption. But again, people tend to want to do those things out of desperation, to think, I'm drowning, so even if you send me a barbed wire, I'm going to hold on to it because that's my only option. No. So yes, it's very good that you brought our attention to these things. It's going to be rough, but as an entrepreneur, if you've been through some entrepreneurial trainings and symposiums or even panel discussions where you get to hear experiences, it's part of the journey. It's not rosy all through. It's not smooth all throughout. There are bumps along the way. Accept it as a bump. Don't get greedy. Don't get desperate and involve yourself in corruption. It's not going to pay off.